Hey guys, Dib the Awesome here to give you a Team Shop update video for May 23rd, 2017. And we will be discussing this I always do this during fraternity events, during the time of fraternity events of doing these update videos to the shop. They actually still haven't touched the ordinary shop. I hope that changes after the fraternity event. Like Exo Skeel, don't get me wrong, Exo Skeel's really good and like all right and all. I'd like to see something else. You know what I'm saying? But I will say, if you guys are still looking to upgrade your Exo Skill during this time, please continue to do so. I mean, in all honesty, Exo Skill's a really heavy hitter. Of course, it follows that say, why use any other Thunder attackers than Voltic? Simple answer is, he's not play the box. That's the best answer I can give to why you should try different try different electric monster. No, it's thunder or yeah thunder. That's words. Sick of Pokemon. Thunder monsters. Try different thunder monsters. Even though something's really stupid broken and it's theoretically speaking it just does so much damage, you should branch out and use different things. You get sick of it after a while. I'm sure at some point people just get sick of just watching him do. I mean, it's not fun, especially when you watch it when you go through it yourself. Actually, fighting Voltic and shit. It's not fun. You feel proud when you go fight with Voltic, the meme lord, aka Voltic. But yeah, Exoskeel's a pretty cool monster. Exoskeel's alright, pretty good attacker. I'll get more into depth later on him, but we'll start this from left and going all the way down. Okay, so first up, General Invarve. General Invarve, I do believe you guys should pick up General Invarve at some point, especially for beginners or just middle class people or just in general. Even like people late gamer like later in the tier use this monster. I think he's considered the gospel support or like the support standards of what we'd like in a support. Or at least he follows the traditions of what support does. Not really fully deny something, not like the entire team, but it gives debuffs like blind, dazing, healing, stamina regen, weaknesses to other moves. I will say he has one of the best weakness moves in the entire game, even if it's not a 50%, even if it's not in words, not an 80% weakness, but he can make everybody weak to light and special moves. Now, light is, but the special thing is really, really huge. There is not a single, there's a few monsters that don't have special moves, but there are very few, very few that don't. Every other like most of them you know what I'm saying, every legendary monster in the game has a special move. They just do it in most of their kits. They always have a special damaging move, so he is universally good across the board. I'd say the only problem with Invarve is his stats compared to nowadays monsters. He trails a little bit behind, but even at that though, people still use this thing. His trade tough, all the generals have tough. It's a 35% chance not to get hit by a status effect. If he doesn't get hit by a status effect, and let's say that you got AoE frozen, your whole team's currently frozen except Invarve, you can clear that up with the encouragement move. It's an AoE move that gives life regen and stamina regen, and it removes all negative effects. And essentially, that can help you win the game, or essentially help you win a defensive fight. It's not a guaranteed thing, but yeah, I would say a drawback to Invarve. This monster is also commonly used on defense. Excuse the dog barking in the background. I can't control that. uh, what was I gonna say? Even though he's a really good defense monster, another thing to note is if they bring a possessor, odds are you're gonna lose the fight. You're 100% more likely to lose the fight just because a possessed Invarve is not good in your favor. It's good for the enemy's favor. You could get AoE blind. You could give the enemy AoE life regen, stamina regen. They get the benefits from that. You can see how bad that would be at that point. So odds are you're not going to win the defense fight. So you're going to be easily 3-coined. But it's a possibility thing, So as long as they don't bring a possessor, that might be hard to do nowadays because of the book war updates. I feel like he got nerfed with these book war. I feel like Invarv kind of got nerfed with this book war update because now there's going to be other things he has to deal with that can possess, and that's his hugest problem. I'd say is with possession. Let me know if you guys agree with me on that. I just feel like that's a thing. If Invarv gets possessed, like on a defensive or whenever I'm fighting and ever I possess Invarv, I seem to more than likely win most of the time when I possess Invarv. I'm just saying. if I'm on the attack and there's like a defending Invarv, if I possess Invarv, I feel like I win. Feel like it. Not necessarily the case 100% of the time. Depends on the situation. If they have a really tanky comp, though, there's a possibility that possession might not even help you at all, or the fact you can control it. It might not help you. I've had a situation where I was using like Egg Eater, Bastet, and another monster, and the monsters were so tanky, and the situations I wound up missing moves, some moves or like some status effects, and that mattered. And yeah, I lost a coin because of it. So yeah, it depends on the situation. It's very situation. The situation's very. It depends on what you're fighting. Totally depends on the runes on the monster, all that jazz. It's very situation, it depends. Depends on how your luck is going. But nonetheless, it is a really good monster. I highly recommend people get this monster. Really nice support monster. General Atum, he's the 1v3 army monster. If you don't know what that means, you can take this guy in a 1v3 fight, or like in a situation where you're just kind of losing, and you bring this guy, he has like a move that reflects damage. Yeah, you can essentially 1v3 the enemy team, possibly. Depending on your runes and all that jazz. Because like if you were fighting like a human player, they would know not to hit you, but the AI just hits you regardless, or just attacks you if they have the stamina. And so if you have damage reflection up and you have the double life up, which he can do, I think that's all in one move too. It's double life, and he can reflect all damage. And he's just literally all full life runes. They're always going to take damage reflected back at Atum. So if they're really stockpiled on life, essentially at some point they just kill themselves because of the damage reflected back on them. He's really good against fighting AI enemies. Other things about Atum, got an AoE stun, and he got an AoE 100% life shield. I do believe it's one of the strongest life shields in the game. That's personally my opinion, because it gives everyone 100% of their life in terms of their shield. So it essentially just gives them whatever their max life is, that's the shield they get. You can imagine how overpowered that is. It is kind of like people watch any of my streams and stuff like that, and I say, "Oh, shut up, Atum, you don't need those shields." Yeah, imagine the 100% life shields with the double life. Yeah, 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 you can imagine it. It sucks. But yeah. He also has a really strong, spammable, really high stamina though move, but regardless of the stamina cost, it's still a really strong hitting move. Do use it. It does a lot of special. It's a special base move too, so it will do a lot of damage to anybody. Really good monster to rank up. Personally, if you're thinking about ranking up generals, rank up Atum. It's a really nice one. C.D.S. Okay, so we got to the monster where this is like literally if they had like a mascot or just like or anything like that. This is pretty much the poster girl or something like that of Monster Legends. You'll like at some point when you reach the when you're doing like Monster Arena, you'll wind up seeing this monster ranked up, and like literally a lot of comps, like half of the comps you see will have this monster along with Voltic. This monster is, I'm gonna say this monster is really, I hate this monster. I hate this monster, and it's a really strong monster, and if you really need a water monster, use this monster. This monster is, as much as I don't want to say it, it's really good because of the 100% AoE stamina drain. That's one of the hugest reasons why people even use this monster here, is because she can AoE 100% stamina drain the enemy team. So you pretty much can't do anything unless you actually get your ultimate, and you can imagine how huge that is, since your other two monsters can still move. Like it only removes it removes all the enemy stamina and her own stamina, and you still have two monsters that can do their things. So you can imagine if you're ever playing like a live PvP fight, if you bring in C.D.S, the other person's gonna hate you. The other person's gonna either A, hate you, or B, like, oh man, why are you doing this, man? Why are you doing this? I thought we were friends. In one of those situations, yeah. Because it's really, really dirty. I'd say she has one of the dirtiest moves in the entire game. Even though it's like even if it's a tide of water, it's dirty. It's dirty, muddy water. Yeah, that's what it is at that point. Because you drain all the stamina. If you have a monster that can AoE deny and they still haven't recharged yet, you win. You essentially win unless something bad happens, unless they get their ultimate. Then you could possibly lose. The reason why C.D.S is so strong is, she takes all the stamina away. So they don't really have a chance to recuperate. And if you can just deny them the whole game or just burst them down, you just win. And that's why the people often pair her up with Thedes. Not Thedes. Not Thedes. Thedes with Thedes, no. Although that would be really, stupid. Thedes with Thedes. Like in terms of like the other Thedes could always pick up the others, stamina drain, and so she'd always have another. Like she can also refill all the stamina of your whole entire team back. So if you had two, it would be really stupid. In terms of like, that's a bad idea. It's as in like you're a jerk. You're a jerk at that point. But yeah, I often see it paired up with Voltic, who is really reliant on his stamina. That's why you see a lot of people like shove stamina runes on him. If you see it with Thedes, it's just automatic. You're kind of a dick. You just are. Yeah, that's Thedes in a nutshell. I really don't like the monster, but in terms of the competitive use, it's a really good monster in terms of competitive usage. It synergizes well with a lot of monsters in the game. I recommend it. Yeah, that's all I have to say. In terms of if you really want a really strong water monster at the moment, this is a really annoying denier. Not the fastest denier in the game. It's by no means not. But since the release of the monster Bowtie, I feel like she's a strong counter to Bowtie in terms of that, because like he can pretty much give immunity to anything in the game, especially like freeze. So you should totally bring DDs to those fights, and it's gonna be really easy for you. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on Thedes. General Darmith. Darmith is a really good fire monster. Like the first, in all honesty, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first 5 generals here you see before you here, or yeah, except this last one here. All these generals right here are really good generals. A lot of people don't like General Uria all that much. He's often overshadowed by Voltic, but I do recommend Uria. Uria's really great. Especially, he's also a counter to Voltic sometimes. It depends on your rune builds, of course. But he's a really tanky monster, so he doesn't take all that much damage to Voltic. General Darmith is really good because he could give himself double damage and half the damage received. So essentially, he's a tanky fire monster. I think he had like a base life of 25k or 26 or 27k. I can't remember on the top of my head. I don't think it was that high. At least I can't remember if it was. But nonetheless, he can half the damage he takes. This is really good because a lot of fire monsters tend to be attackers. So he'll essentially take less damage from that. Anything else, even less damage than the deniers or anything like that. Things that can still wear him down. Oh, wait, another thing too. He also has everything. So he'll half DOT damage. He'll half just like he can just halve all the damage he takes. It's a really good self buff. One of the better self buffs in the game. Personally, that's not like an extra turn move, like extra turn self buff, which is really stupid. Not in terms of like that's bad, but is it as good? But yeah, he can step up a lot of damage. Beyond that, he's pretty. He's got the AOE fire. Not the AOE fire, the AOE burn. Which is fire damage anyway, but he's got the AoE burn, he's got the really strong hitting special damaging move, and I believe that's about it. But the strongest thing about him is that self buff. You can also give him a AoE AoE damage and precision buff to everybody on your team. I think that was the case. I think that's what that does. So that's a pretty neat little utility move right there. Pretty strong fire monster. You'll often see this thing on defense. It is way better than his pet counterpart. Don't even get the pet counterpart. It's terrible. Unless you're trying to fill out your book, there's no reason to get Darmith pet. Darmith pet is terrible. And it's sad because Darmith pet was the first pet to ever be released, and it was the saddest pet to ever be released because it was so terrible, and people still spent 2.2k for it. There are people that spent 2.2k for the thing, and it's yeah. Oh man, it's so bad. In terms of like, if you ever checked out Darmith Pet, then you checked out General Darmith, it's like, you know it's like just straight off the bat. Wow, Darmith Pet is terrible. I always encourage to get the things you like, of course. So if you like Darmith Pet, just by design, you don't get it. Don't get the stuff you like. General Uria. General Uria is a really neat monster. Few good qualities about him is he's really tanky, one thing. He's got tough too. You know, every general has tough, so that helps him a lot. And number 3, all of his moves are on really low cooldowns, and they do a shit ton of damage. In terms of the single target moves, very good damage output. I think it's like 55, 60, and a 65 damage move, I believe, in terms of the single target variety. And one causes blind and one causes daze, so you can essentially make someone miss a lot. You know, blind, you can blind them and then daze them, and they have 75 less chance. You know, they lose 75% of their accuracy. Really neat combo there. Although I don't know if it matters really too much because of the damage like especially if you rank up Uria. I have mine ranked up to 115. He does so much damage that they either did down on that first hit, like that first like ult him, or like the next hit kills him. But yeah, regardless, it's a really good Thunder monster. He doesn't get much credit because Voltic exists. I highly recommend Uria, guys. Uria is not a bad monster. His pet's also really good too. I'm gonna say that his Uria's pet is also really nice. Basically, what Uria's pet is, he kind of swaps out tankiness for a bit more speed. Oh, actually, no, I think they run on no, I take that back. They run on the same speed actually. And he swaps out a bit of his life for more power. He has more power than Uria, and his moves themselves do a little bit more damage. He has like a 75 and I think like an 80. Is it 80 or 85? I don't remember, but anyway, the single target moves that guy is capable of is really high. His AoE is also better. He's got a 45 damage AoE that's special based versus Uria's, which is thunder based and 40 damage. Although the cooldown on that's much lower. I think again that's another huge difference too. The cooldown differences in Uria and Uria's pet are hugely different. I'm gonna say the better those strength runes on your Uria's pet, the better chances he has in terms of dealing with monsters versus Uria. Even though the damage output is significantly different, the cooldown difference is noticeable. You better hope your Uria knocks him down into like one or like for sure one hit. Urias have a bit more longevity than Uria's pet. I recommend using Uria's pet on the attack, and Uria's, he should have General Uria on defense. Not a bad thing to do. General Shanara. This monster's an okay monster. Literally, it's one of those monsters where nobody hates it at all, or it's an alright monster. that's just there's a bunch of discussions for a variety of monsters in the game. General said, what's the best general? Is it this better or that better? But this monster is never brought up at all. It's the person that just sits there. It's not a bad classmate. It's not necessarily most talked about classmate. It's not a bad monster. Period. That's just to wrap it all up for that one. It's not a bad monster. It's just a meh attacker. Can be really devastating, especially when you ranked her up. The damage difference is there. She can do a lot of damage, especially if she gets her ultimate. The drawback to that is if the AI does use the ultimate, it's going to lose all of its stamina, but it's going to do a lot of damage. I think the damage is 90. I think it's an AoE 90 damage ultimate, and it does a lot of damage. So if you were wondering if she was good or not, she's alright. She's alright. Ranking her up, obviously, ranking up anything in the game, obviously you're going to have a better time with. I think she runs at the gospel power of 465. So yeah, still it's an alright monster. Nothing to really complain about. Alces Pet. I'm gonna say this is one of the better nature monsters in the entire game. Here's every single reason why. One, he counters every single monster in his category, save for a handful. Reason why? Because every nature monster has the tendency to heal. This guy counters healing. This guy is a bane to every single nature monster on defense. So be it Lamu or anything, anything like that. He can reduce the healing essentially. Not only reduce, not well in terms of like when I say that, I mean he doesn't have like healing. He means like if they heal, they take damage instead of healing. That's huge. So if you're fighting something, let's say you're fighting Judgment, right? Let's say you're fighting Judgment. You bring this thing to a fight. Whenever it does its like life regen move, or it's like 30% healing move, it's gonna be taking damage instead of healing it, and the fight's gonna not even be that long of a fight. This is a huge counter to Ouros too. I'm saying that right off the bat too. He's a huge counter to the things that are reliant on life regen or shielding, such as Ouros, that really want to block their DOT damage he's currently taking, but he can't block that because of the his AoE. It's an AoE actually that applies it. It's a negative, it's a reverse healing. Instead of healing, you take damage, and it also blocks the shield. It's kind of like Trolled. In fact, if anything, it's exactly like Trolled, and it's really, really strong. Because everybody in the nature category, mostly everybody, there's a handful of monsters that don't necessarily heal. Just a handful, though, namely Larger Khan and Kiridar. Kiridars are one of the newer nature monsters who hits really hard. Beyond that, there's very few monsters that don't heal, and that just means he counters all of them. Other things he has a really, I think it was like a 35% AoE heal. He also does, I think he has a self-healing move too. Really strong hitting special damage moves. And all of his moves too. I would like to also point out that all of his moves also do percent damage, in terms of the fact that once you've applied the negative healing, he has several moves that also give healing to the enemy team. But and I do think it would be a bad thing. But they're under this effect at the moment that if they heal, they take damage. They do to the opposite. You're essentially applying burn damage. You essentially applied that. It is really, really strong. Now you have to play with the comps a bit. I'm going to say that real quick. You should probably play around with the comps when you're using Alces Pet. Obviously, you don't want a brittle team. You want more so of a long sustaining team, because you're able to sustain. They can't. Like Alces Pet is designed specifically to prevent stalling. He's just there to do that. They can't heal. They can't apply shields. I'd have to say another thing when fighting Ouros, make sure Ouros doesn't actually get a chance to move too. That's another important thing when you're fighting Ouros, just so you don't get global stomped. Ways to avoid that is by just completely possessing him the whole game, which you could have used Lamu to begin with. That's another option. If you don't really like Alces Pet all that much, bring Lamu to those fights. Has a single target possession. She can control Ouros kind of the whole game, but things to watch out for: he can reflect damage, so that's kind of a pain, and you can get a chance to get global stun. In all honesty, that's the only reason why people mainly put Ouros on defense, mainly for that global stomp. You can bring a monster to remove, you can bring a monster to take away his toys, but the real big reason why people even put Ouros on defense nowadays is for global stomp. And that's huge. That's the hugest thing you can do. That's the only, in all honesty, that's the only way you could ever possibly lose against Ouros. Either A, you weren't patient and you attacked him when he had his damage return up, or B, you got global stomped. You got trolled with the 50% AoE chance to die. That's mainly the huge reasons why people put Ouros on defense, and that's why you see them with life runes all the time. Hugest problem is he's really slow. He's extremely slow, so you'll get more turns in than he'll ever will. And if you just keep denying him the whole game, the game's mostly done from there. We'll probably see him perform better with these books. That's just the thing. He'll probably perform better since the book's release, and you can't necessarily. I don't think Brownies is in any chapters yet. I don't remember if he is, but I don't think he's in many. So yeah, that's. Yeah. That's a huge counter out the window. For a while anyway. Unless you get an Earth War, unless you get a very, instead of like a, if you get like an Earth requirement, then the fight's really still really easy. But yeah, Bronny's just his hugest counter. In terms of Ouros, I'm speaking of. Ura's pet. I just got done talking about this monster when I was explaining General Uria. So just a simple, quick letdown of the monster, or lay down. Really high end damage. If anything, this guy has a really strong and really high quality single target damage. I know for a fact he has at least a 70 damage move. He's got a another move that does, I think it was like 80 or 85 damage, that did a kind of a spread, like residue damage, like Voltic does. He has a little bit like that. It's weaker than AoE damage. Don't get it wrong. Don't get it wrong with like AoE damage, but it does residue damage. The damage isn't all that much in terms of the residue, but in terms of single target damage, oh, you better hope the strength limits aren't too high, or you're just gonna tip over, or like your monster isn't brittle. He'll go straight for the thing that's the most brittle on the field and probably blow it up. If you fight this thing on defense, that's just a quick note. I'd say a huge problem with the monster, he's got low life. I'd say in terms of life, he's the equivalent of Osteoclast. I think it was only like they don't share the same life, but it's pretty much the same. It's like 22k, I think it was, for Uria's pet. I think it was. I could be wrong. I'm not 100% right on that, but the concept's still the same. This thing isn't tanky. This thing can tip over. If you're fighting an Earth monster just like that, it's not a good idea to bring this thing to Earth fights. Because Earth fights tend to have like tanky monsters. Earth are really tanky monsters, and it doesn't do you much good if you can't one hit the enemy Earth. Earth will utterly destroy this monster because he's mainly pure damage, and Earth monsters tend to have AoE shields. Again, that depends on your rune, of course. It depends on how high your runes are. But if you're like new or middle class, and you're fighting an Earth monster, you're not necessarily going to tip them over with the first hit. Odds are they'll have a life rune on them. And then that's kind of taxing on Uria's pet if you can't kill it right away. Okay, I never brought this up in the beginning of the video, but they made a huge change in terms of the runes you can get for fraternity events. This might be, in the next event they might do with solid runes again, but for this event it's all team runes. Team runes. Team strength, team life, team speed, all that jazz. There's no single pure rune. That could be bad. It could be bad, or not that could be bad, but if that is the case, it can be bad, because a lot of people, they already took out the level 9 runes. Level 9 runes aren't a thing anymore. Level 7s are the new 9s. And it's really bad if they, not only did they take away that, but they also changed them to what is currently right now, team runes. So you can imagine how bad that is. I would like to note, though, that the level 4 runes are fairly cheap in terms of, runes. But I wouldn't recommend getting runes. At least these runes, these are all team runes. I'd say if you wanted more gold, you could. If you really didn't care about just getting any generals or anything like that, you want to be that cool kid that didn't get what everyone has in terms of generals and all that jazz. They just focused on runes. Level 4, you can craft level 5 runes because you can buy so much of the level 4s, but I'm not recommending this. It's just an idea. If you really don't care about the pets anymore, if you don't care about the journals anymore, just getting any monsters, that's just an idea. It's stupid. But yeah, that's that. I'm not really gonna go too much into the relevant. I'd say the most relevant thing in terms of all these runes are the team speed. Specifically, you can get level 7 team speed, and you can put them on epics that you don't plan on having being tanky, or they're already naturally tanky to begin with. You have them ranked up. You could put team speed on them to make your denier faster. All I see this is a benefit to make your main denier faster. Essentially, I think these are the most important team runes. Uh, Team Life can come handy. It's sometimes, not all the time. Really situational. Team Lives are really situational. You can't put Team Lives on things that are brittle. I'm gonna say that real quick. Don't put Team Life runes on things that are brittle. Just straight off the bat, it will do you no good. If the monster dies, essentially all the other monsters lose that life that you gave them, or like that if that monster that's holding the rune dies, then all the other monsters that are still currently alive have reduced like their base life is reduced. Essentially, that could just get them killed. uh, Essentially, what they kind of just soften basic blows. They, like if you're taking like normal damage, uh, Team Life is essentially there just to make sure you can stomach that basic damage. I'm gonna say the higher the higher the Team Life rune is, the better chances of you living through shit. uh, yeah, only put it on tanky monsters, especially monsters that can heal. So things like Envarv is a example of a tanky monster. He doesn't necessarily tip over unless you get hit by double damage. But the concept of the team runes is to keep monsters essentially alive from basic damage. That's all these really essentially do. They can't. I want to say again, these team life runes, they don't necessarily save you from double damage. It's very situational if they do, but yeah, for the most part, they won't save you from double damage. If you get double damage, odds are you're still dead. Odds are. It depends on your comp, of course, but for the most part, these things only are designed so you can stomach the basic attack damage, or anything like that. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. In terms of, I really just kind of emphasized on the team speed and the team life. You can use team strength runes to power up your damage dealer if you wanted to. There's no advanced teachings I could say on this. It's just exactly what it does. It gives you and your monsters, just like it gives everyone on the team more damage. I don't know if the damage boost is necessarily all that high. I forget. I don't know what the level 7 strength rune gives in terms of the team strength. But that's essentially all that does. You can use I can say you can use I'd say you can use any of these team runes. I don't really do this on my totem, but totem is basically a built-in rune buddy. You can essentially use any combination of the team runes. Totally dependent what you want totem to do. But you can give everybody more damage with the teams. It totally depends what team runes you want to give them. But essentially, you can put team runes on totem. Personally, I don't like it too much. I personally have my totem with 2 speeds and a life rune. Your goal is to apply that buff a bunch of times. You don't want him to die either. You don't want totem to die on you too. So I'd recommend a solid life rune, and you can put any 2 team runes on him. That's just my recommendation. Or you could just go full runes, full team runes, like team speed if you wanted. I'd say this benefits things like totem, or just like monsters that naturally put team runes on them, like legendary monsters and or epics. Some builds, some monsters like team builds. This benefits monsters that want team runes. Pretty much that all this equates to. Examples: buffers, any buffer in the game, healing supports. Things that really don't need that many turns to do with stuff. So basically supports. That's what runes are for teams. A lot of teams just use team speed. But you can be variative, you can try different stuff. Be creative with the team runes if you want, in terms of the combinations. Totally depends. But I'm gonna say you should probably do 2 of the. You should probably always have the same runes so you get the most benefit out of them. So probably full team speed, team life. Just stick with one solid thing. You can if you do the extra. It's not too much of a boost if you just did an extra guy build of team runes, like a team life, team strength, team speed. Not too huge. So you want to stay with the same color throughout. So Holter's pet. It's an okay pet. I personally, this is one of my favorite pets. It reminds me of Chewbacca. I called my Holter's pet Chewie. Joy. Holter's pet is pretty alright. He's got a self 75% life shield. He can give everybody on his team a damage boost. I saw it during one of my arena battles this morning. They finally fixed that. They didn't give the boost, but apparently that's an AoE 50% damage boost. So he can give everybody damage boost. He kind of serves as like an extra guy tank. Extra guy tanks is just not necessarily a support, but it's a monster that can do damage while also doing a few supportive stuff like blinding, dazing, or just providing shields or something like that. Just not really necessarily denying, but just he's just there to do stuff. He's just there in case you lose your attacker, you still have another damage. Theoretically, you still have another damage dealer that doesn't deal as much damage as your damage dealer, but is pretty tanky. Nonetheless. So that's Holter's pet's all. I'd say Holter's pet's all right. Not the most broken metal monster in the game. His speed isn't the highest too. So if you really don't want a slow monster, or like you want a really fast monster to say, you don't necessarily want to look into Holter's pet. Holter's pet's kind of slow, not too slow. I don't think he was too slow anyway. But yeah, he's not the fastest legendary in the game. I can't remember his base speed. I know it was like, can't be just 3. Is it 3,000? I don't really remember. I know it's not. I know it's like 3,000. Is it 3,300? I don't remember. Period. Just if you're curious on what the speed is, go ahead and look it up for yourselves. It's on Monster Legends Wiki. Exo Skeel. Alright, so we got to the good old alien Toy Story monster again. Toy Story, that alien one, yeah, the alien toy, yeah. Reminds me just like that. Exo Skeel is really great. One of the better AoE damage dealers in the game. I think he holds a 50 or 55 damage AoE along with a 45 damage AoE. I think they're both thunder based. Essentially, the AoE damage he does is absurd. It's almost as absurd as Ringer's, but Ringer's is always going to be the champ of AoE damage with the 70 damage AoE bleed. The best thing about him, but hey, it's the only good thing about Ringer, but hey, it's he's the champ, AoE champion. But I'd say in terms of who has more damaging AoEs, this guy has more damage AoE. So you could say the overall damage, like if you were to put Ringer and this guy in the ring, Exo Skeel would do more damage overall because he has another AoE that's higher versus the 30 damage Dismal Chimes Ringer holds. His weakness is 45, Ringer's is 30. In terms of the two, Exo Skeel has the higher second AoE. So in terms of more AoE damage, this guy's pretty spot on. It's not a bad. I want to say it's a really cheap monster to rank up at the moment. So if you really wanted a nice thunder attacker, this guy wouldn't be bad. I'd say the only problem with this thing is he's not immune to stun. He's immune to daze. He doesn't have harden either. Just this kind of thing. He's immune to daze. A lot of people don't see daze as all that great of a trait. I think it's really great for attackers. I'm just saying, whenever I'm dazed and I don't kill something, it's because of that. It's just a bothersome thing. I don't know if it might not be too much of a big deal if you have really high end damage on runes on it, but if you're just running basic level 5 strength runes, it matters. It matters, and it can be bothersome, and it could cost you the game sometimes. I know for me it has. Being dazed isn't the best thing in the world for the damage dealers anyway. You have a small trolley chance to miss, and you do less damage. It's bothersome. Other things Exo Skeel has, I know his ultimate hits hard. I can't remember the damage output the ultimate does, but I'm pretty sure the damage is absurd, given the rune build choices you could do. Some people actually build him full damage, and it does a lot of damage. I think Exo Skeel is just one of those monsters where if you see someone build full damage, it's still something to be terrified of, especially if you don't deny him. Because if you don't control Exo Skeel and he gets the move, he's going to do one of his AoEs and you're going to die. Something dies. It's either everything dies or something dies. So it's like something's dead. Just anything, just anything on the field. He does a shit ton of AoE, AoE damage. Again, he's not immune to any restrain. So that's kind of a problem people have with him. He's got a single target special stun, and I think he has another move. I think that's either dazes or something like that. But the main point is his AoE damage. Even though they're thunder based, the damage output is still really strong. So essentially he'll kill anything that's not thunder, but you gotta deal with a thunder monster like the next time he moves again, obviously. Nishant's pet. Nishant's pet's really great. It's one of the better pets in the entire game, if not a really great dark monster in the entire game. Or let's look for one of the better ones in the entire game. He has an AoE possession. He's immune to possession. And dark monsters tend to have some really strong possessors in their hold, such as Mommy. What are other ones? Scribe isn't too heavy on that, but right now at the moment I can only name Mommy. Mommy is pretty strong. Mommy, as in that's an actual monster in this. I'm not kidding. Or just look up Monster Legends Mommy if you're new to this game. Mommy's a literal monster, right? They have a dad unit too. You're like, yeah, they did a Mother Father's Day monster. Yeah, I'm like, but I can counter the possessions for the most part. One of the better possessors. A really great thing. I want to say he's also universally he's one of the better deniers in the game too, because he has a single target move. Alright, he's got a single target move that dazes and blinds at the same time. Now, when you're blind and dazed, that's a huge pain in the ass. You essentially have 75% accuracy loss, right? For the most part, blind doesn't last that long. So you only get that 75 accuracy usually, less 75% accuracy usually for only like a turn, because it doesn't last that long, and like days last for like 3 turns. So you'll have days up longer than you will blind. The hugest thing is, I think this is spammable too. I think this move was spammable. I can't remember if it wasn't, but the deny of that move is really, really powerful. Essentially, they have like a needle in the haystack chance of actually hitting you. That's huge. If you're fighting something like C.D.S, that's huge. If they actually miss that, that's huge. It just is. It's a really great, strong single target deny. One of the better single target denies in the game. True, it doesn't fully deny you, but you have a huge chance to miss. That's huge. It essentially kills. It's a really bothersome thing for a lot of things, like attackers, deniers, you name it. It's really bothersome. He also has a single target possession that gives the enemy double damage. Essentially he's an pretty much helper to the enemy team. He gives double damage to someone. They're currently possessed, and they're going to do a lot of damage to their own team. He can also make everybody weak to dark type moves. 80% weakness to any dark type move. So essentially, he pairs extremely well with things like Heyman or Losty Ghost that only do dark damage. Especially to Losty Ghost for one thing too, because he has a spammable, low stamina cost 75 damage move. Obviously if you put really good strength runes on the Losty Ghost, and you can just essentially just kill everything at that point. Because the base damage on that's really high. If you can patch up Losty Ghost's damage, and you can just spam that, they're dead. They're not going to take too much hits to that. Obviously, Losty Ghost isn't the best dark monster in the example, but it's a really good. I'm gonna say it's a really good example for player control, just simply because the base damage alone is stupid. 75 damage, spammable. Come on, guys. And the stamina cost isn't all that high too. So if you had something like AOE stamina regen, essentially you have an attacker that can keep on moving and not give two shits if he's stamina drained by C.D.S. That's just an example. Heyman essentially works really great for Heyman because he has a low single turn cooldown, 65 damage, lifesteal. Essentially, that's really great too. You can do very memey. You can pair this thing up with really memey dark monsters, and it's going to be a fun time because you're going to see them do absurd amounts of damage because they have really strong single target dark moves. And it kind of evens out the fact that they have low base damage. So odds are if you're running like level 5 strength runes with Heyman or Losty Ghost, that negative weakness will even that out, and essentially they'll do an absurd amount of damage. That's just an example. It also works with things that do absurd amount of damage to begin with. It just does, like Barbatos, or like you can say that's unnecessary at that point. But I just get my point. That's just a few examples. Essentially, that means you don't have to necessarily build Barbatos damage. You can build them a life for the extra guy build, and that debilitating darkness kind of makes it so you don't have to worry about not killing them, because essentially the one will kill him. He works really well. I'm gonna say this real quick. He works really well with Real Laserface. I'm just saying. I don't have him, but I can just see that because he has two dark AoEs that do 35 damage. One that stuns and one that dazes. So you can imagine how much damage output that is. And the room builds you can do for Real Razorface would just be so broken. I just gotta think about it. He also has a single target lifesteal too. So yeah, you can that's also dark type. So if you're running a Real Razorface that's just tanky, like an X life rune and 2 speeds, and you can apply Gloomy Dark Doom to them, you're dead. You're not gonna have a fun fight. It's gonna be a series. For rune builds for Nishant's pet, variative. There are a few ways you can build them. Mostly full speed. You can build them kind of supportive if you wanted. But that's just my opinion. I can do 2 team speeds, maybe just a solid speed too. Just be supportive. You can do a few things with Nishant's pet. Atum's pet. Atum's pet is basically think Osteo. If you have Osteoclast, think a faster Osteoclast with little Atum things, just little Atum things. He doesn't hit as hard as Osteoclast. Obviously, I just like to consider him like that because he has a 45 damage AoE, ground-based AoE. I think it was like either Osteoclast had slightly higher damage, or like they had the same damage. I can't remember. I think Osteoclast had higher damage, but or at least a higher base power. But regardless, I like to think of them like that sometimes. Like if Osteoclast and Atum came together and somehow didn't create something that was really fucking awesome in terms of the fleets they could do. I made it sound really like I was just gonna say like this thing. It's alright. Basically, I just think of this as just a fast Osteoclast. It can prove to be a real pain in the ass to Voltic. I don't know. Honestly, I don't think he's that fast enough though. Never mind. Forget that last statement. It's not a bad monster. It's I guess you could say it's not. It's one of the lesser impressive pets. It's better than Darmith's pet. I'm gonna say that right off the bat. If you had to choose between Atum's pet and Darmith's pet, get Atum's pet. Why are you even debating at that point? Well, look at that. Think about option 1, and then look at option 2, which is Darmith's pet. Just go straight for option 1. Don't even look back at option 2. It's got some utility. Atum's pet has utility. I'd say Darmith's pet doesn't have any utility except the damage boost and like the burn. But Atum's pet has some little bit utility. Not too much. I'm gonna say since he has to deal with tank monsters though, for the most part in wars, not the best Earth monster in the entire game. You won't be able to clear Earth monsters all that well. C.D.S pet. Okay, I'm gonna say this is another one of the better pets in the entire game, specifically in terms of damage dealing. Now, the one stingy thing people don't like about C.D.S pet is the fact it's all water-based damage. I'm going to say that does not matter. That really, really doesn't matter. If you're really self-conscious about that, I was like, oh, if it's all water damage, if it's a team war, not to fight a water monster, that's not going to do Mini any good. Keep noting a few things, alright? The Denier, for the most part, usually doesn't do any damage. It's probably like something like Cabin Fish or something like that. So you don't have to worry too much of the damage they necessarily deal. And this thing has double damage. Like, it has a single target move that provides you with double damage, and the base moves of its single target attacks are really high. So it's gonna knock your lights out. The double damage basically cures the fact it's gonna be, like, not very effective damage. They basically take normal damage, and if they're taking normal damage at that point, they're gonna die. Depending on of course, it depends on your rune build, of course, just like what the level of your runes are. I'm gonna say for level 5, it's possible that it just sweeps it regardless. Or they live with a pinch, and that really doesn't, I'm gonna say for the most part, that really doesn't matter. Because you could just, again, sweep them. I'd say it only matters in the case of the event. You really need it dead. Like, if you're running a Brittle War. I don't know how well C.D.S Pet would do in a Brittle War situation. I just don't. He doesn't have an AoE freeze. He has a single target freeze. I just want to point that out. And he has a precision move. The precision move, he has like a really high base damage precision move, and it hits like a truck. In terms of the damage output it does to anything that's not water, it's absurd. He knocks it over. He's got also the better, in terms of attack stats, in terms of the attackers in the game, he's got a real, like, this C.D.S Pet has really good base power and base speed. He's a really fast one too. I think he was faster than Voltic. I can't remember, but regardless, this attacker is really great. One of the better attackers in the game, despite the fact he's all water moves. That's the only thing that's bothersome to people, is it doesn't have a special move. And I think that's okay. It doesn't, because of the self buffs he can provide. Basically, this thing came out after Darmith's Pet. This is how the pet. I think this is how the pet should have started. Like, it would have been a better start off. Darmith's Pet was the worst start off, in my opinion, in terms of the moves it had. Like, first impressions, Darmith's Pet was the worst first impression ever. In terms of moveset, in terms of the moveset and the stat, not the most impressive in the world. It's just not. C.D.S Pet was pretty much a redemption to that, in terms of, like, after the next one went on, after Darmith's Pet, it was C.D.S Pet. So immensely better. It's like pretty much pick me up after a huge disappointment. Down on Turtle. Now, I don't recommend buying, just straight up buying any epic monsters, just like from the team shop. Save your coins for legendaries. Down on Turtle is a pretty awesome epic. The only pretty the only problem, not pretty, the only problem this monster has is it's so slow. It's like support moves are amazing. He's got like stamina refill. It has a lot of stamina refill moves that gives double damage to and removes negative effects. But it's so slow. It is so obscenely slow. And it's like its original count, like, it has, like, this monster is pretty much a copy and paste of a monster before it, in terms of stance, in terms of, it basically has the same move set, but it has other, like, little small things better about it. The speed is slightly higher, it's like 2,200. I'd rather have a 2,200 than a 2,000 slowest monster. That's it's already slow. They're both slow to begin with, but I'd like a less slower one. But yeah, basically, buffs are amazing, but it's really slow. iPug is a really fun epic. It's adorable. I have the Christmas version. It's just obscenely adorable. That's its most effective move, adorableness. It will win you over with its really weird puggish eyes, but it's really adorable. Getting into a more serious note, it has an AoE poison and an AoE stamina link that also removes 15% stamina. In all honesty, that's really it. It also gives itself precision too. And again, that's really it. I think its trait is hardened, so it's an alright trait to have. Darmith's Pet, shit. Move on. I don't really need to play too much on Darmith's Pet. No, I guess I was joking. I suppose I'll give you some small insight. Plain as a burger, done. just like really like it's really really stale and plain. AOE burning, spammable, like is stereotypical. It's the damage. The single target damage isn't bad. It's six. I think it's like 65, 60 damage, I think. But it's got a spammable move. Beyond that, it's terrible. There's nothing impressive about this thing. Nothing at all. uh, just get General Darmith himself. If you wanted to choose between Darmith's pet or General Darmith, get General Darmith. Just get General Darmith. Unless you need to fill your book, there's really no point to get this monster. It's really terrible. It's really, really terrible. In terms of, I guess in terms of fun, this thing is, the design is cool, but in terms of moves, it's not all that impressive. Not a bad fire attacker, it's just really stale. You'll find a new fire monster. You'll pick up another fire monster, and then you look back on Darmith and say, why did I get this thing? What possessed me to get this thing? Oh yeah, I need to fill the book. But yeah. That's all I have to say about Darmith's pet. General Nishant. Nishant's, I'm gonna say Nishant gets better when he's ranked up. That's all I have to say about that in terms of just overall. He gets better when you rank him up. I'm going to say he's really useful with the book wars, specifically because in the wing chapter he's one of the stronger attackers, I think he was, in terms of winged chapter. In terms of attackers, like the damage output he can do, especially when he's ranked up, is absurd. Really low base life. Everything else about him is spot on. He's a really brittle attacker, but when you rank him up, that brittleness kind of goes away. Just like in terms of dealing with stuff lower than him, but obviously if you're fighting a ranked up attacker, you're still going to get tipped over, regardless of how high or low if you're fighting if you're fighting 115 ranked up, you get my point. You might still get destroyed, because the damage output is immensely different at that point when you level up your monsters. General Holter, I'd say probably second or third favorite. I can't remember in terms of, because I mean like a general guide series. I can't remember if this guy was my second or third favorite. Really good metal attacker. I'd say for new players you should probably get him. The hardest legendaries to pick up are light and metal monsters. So I'd recommend getting Holter if you don't already, if you haven't had a metal monster yet. Holter's not a bad beginner metal monster. Has double damage, single target double damage. He gives himself is like self buff while he's also dealing damage. He also has a single target burn. He does the magnetism combo, which is a 50% magnetism plus they take 50% more damage than that, and he has another AoE that does 45 damage. That's metal based too, so more damage. I'd say that's essentially it. Just a really strong metal damage dealer. General Alces, single target 100% heal. Really awesome. I'm gonna say this is one of the better generals too, simply because you can give 100% heal to anything that's currently like you can just give it to anything that's dying. It pulls them back to 100%. So far, I think he's one of the very few that can actually do this, if not the only one that has 100% heal. There's like monsters with 100% heal ultimates, but I think right now at the moment he's the only one with 100% heal. He can heal anybody for 100%. I think he's the only one that can do that at the moment. Others are like 35 or 50% heals. His is the strongest single target heal in the game at the moment, in terms of just pure healing. He also can do a stun and life regen move. He can stun somebody and give himself life regen. Excuse me. Stun and life regen. I'd recommend this monster if you're a beginner. Really strong nature monster. Good single target moves and good AoE. He's got like a damage reduction AoE. Okay, so if they're not immune to poison, if you're fighting another Alces, you can essentially apply poison. Not only can you apply poison, but you can also have it, if you also put the AoE damage reduction on him, they do essentially really low damage. The damage they do is pretty low at that point. It's also a good way to counter things that do AoE double damage, or just double damage in general, and you move right before the attacker. Essentially, it saves your life. I like to say it as I like to say that move's a lifesaver. Just saying. The rest are cells. The rest of this stuff is cells. Not all that important, I'm gonna say. Don't bother with the cells. Cells are worthless, and they cost a lot of coins. 250 for just 10 cells. That's a terrible deal. Don't ever invest in cells. Unless you're just really, really close to ranking up something and you don't care. You just want that thing ranked up at that point. Personally, I think it saves you coins if you just bought the whole... I guess it saves you resources, but personally, I would just rank up another monster. That way I'd have more cells left over to rank them up to the next rank. So personally, just stick with buying whole monsters. It's cheaper in the end. And that's all I have to say for this team shop video. I'd say this video was really long for how I wanted it to be. I have no idea how long this whole thing was. Overall, I felt like I did a good job explaining everything that needed to be said. It could be unnecessary too, because I have explained this stuff already in previous videos. I have explained all these monsters in previous videos. The only thing that's new in this team shop are the runes. The team runes are there now. There's no single pure runes. I don't like that at all, and personally, in my opinion. It's a good thing it's like we're almost done with this video because I'm a low battery. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts on it are. I personally don't like it. Maybe you guys like it. I don't mind the team speed runes. That's a little neat thing. I can't remember if they had that before. I just can't remember. But I think it's good. I think this helps monsters that already put team runes on themselves. It's good for those monsters. That's about it. Let me know what your thoughts are on it in the comments below. Tell me what's your favorite monster in the shop too. I want to know that too. I love to know. I'd say out of all these monsters, I gotta go to my man. Uria. General Uria is the boss. General Uria. Can we get a Uria in the comments below? Uria's cool. Why do you look at that? It's kind of toys. Look at that. It's really cool. Is that like some kind of? So you gotta wonder, does that some kind of toy? I think it's like a toy sword. That's a cool thing for a baby monster. Have a little toy sword that glows. It's like it's funny. I wonder if that's like, watch, it's like just some, it's just like some like popsicle. It's like what like those I don't know the name of those popsicles, but they the ones with the multicolor. I'm pretty sure they're just called popsicles or popsicles. I can't remember, but there's popsicles that have like there's like American flag colored ones like red, white, and blue. I just can't remember the names, but it kind of reminds me of that. I don't think it is actually like a popsicle because it's got like a hilt and everything. I don't think it has a hilt. I don't know. But it's just a funny statement. So that's everything you need to know. I'm Dib the Awesome. I'll catch you guys later.